It's adventure time! Yes, that's right, today we're talking about Adventurers, one of my favorite series of cards in the game. Introduced in the Grand Creators, these are a bunch of cards that don't necessarily fall into one single archetype, however they do all have a uniting strategy built around the Adventurer token. So very obviously all of these cards are built around a little story that is very reminiscent of Isekai anime, novels, video games, all of that stuff. And one of the things that I really do love about the Adventurer archetype is how it all comes together to make that story. In terms of both the gameplay and some of the lore that we get later on, you may know some of these cards from their time in the competitive scene, because with several of the important cards they made a very powerful splashable engine that would normally end on a negate, giving you some protection before you go into your actual plays for whatever deck you're actually playing. And while I did pull a Water Enchantress of a Temple and a Rite of Aramesir in my original box of Grand Creators, it wasn't until much later that the engine fell out of favor with everybody else that I decided to play Pure Adventure just for fun. And boy, let me tell you, this is definitely one of my favorite decks. So let's go ahead and discuss the lore of all these cards and how it comes together for a really fun experience. Generally, the spells are things like rites that summon the hero, field spells that serve as a setting of adventure, and helpful items that you gain across the way. The monsters are the rest of the party who join you on your adventure, and all of the track cards are different skills that activate during battle. Basically, they're like summons you would see in various role-playing games. And while there are a lot of great details in the card art and some of the concept art that we get to see, we do have some text to go off of in terms of the lore from the valuable book EX2. The section on Adventure tells us, when you wake up, what lay before you was another world that you had never seen before. This is the story of a single adventurer who was summoned to another world thanks to an ancient ritual, and that ritual is the Rite of Aramesir. Here we see the Water Enchantress of a temple summoning the hero to their world, and this is a spell that summons the adventurer token that the entire deck revolves around. And I think it is a really fun idea to not necessarily have a definitive monster as the main hero, but instead making it a token allows you to be the one who decides what they look like. Tokens in Yu-Gi-Oh can come in all different shapes and sizes, and while there are some very specific to different types of spells or monster effects, there are a good amount of generic ones, or even recently the neat ones that feature various characters from the anime. Personally, I go to that classic Yu-Gi-Oh video of how to make your own custom token. The token I use takes the artwork of Rookie Warrior Lady. I think it really fits the style. Anyway, let's talk about Water Enchantress of a temple, the one who summoned you here in the first place. You are finally awake. You were summoned to this world with the ritual of an ancient covenant. People of all sorts of races exist in this world, alongside unknown monsters and the power of magic. Also, there are valuable treasures sleeping in the ruins around the world. Let us leave this temple and embark on a journey full of adventure. I shall try and support you with my water magic, even though I'm not that skilled. Yeah dude, I really love a Water Enchantress of the Temple. I would say this is definitely one of my favorite Yu-Gi-Oh monsters, call her my card waifu or whatever, but also I think it's really hilarious that mainly her effect is used to search out the Rite of Aramesir spell card, so normally she'll be in the hand, graveyard, or banishment, but if you're playing Yu-Gi-Oh Master Duel and do actually get to summon her, then she has her own summon animation. She continues on. Danger is part of our journey of adventure. That being the case, we will need companions we can trust, which is why we befriended Magic Core Warrior, who has a sturdy body, and Griffin Rider, a member of the Felinoids. Let us continue our adventure with our 4-member traveling party. So yes, these two are the other monsters that we get to meet on our travels, and they also get some dialogue later in the story. Magic Core Warrior is this really neat magical mechanic monster, and Wandering Griffin Rider is really fun as well. Though as you can see, the Griffin takes up a big part of the artwork and the actual Griffin Rider you can barely see. But in different card artworks as well as the concept art, you can see that it's just a funny little cat guy riding a giant griffin. Then there's also Dracoback the Rideable Dragon. This is one of the equip spells, meaning that it's meant to be used by the token, as in the hero is the one riding this dragon. Though I could imagine maybe they have multiple and everybody else gets one. It reminds me of a little rideable dinosaurs that they have in ReZero. And obviously everyone is represented in the artwork of Fateful Adventure. The artwork for this one is really nice because it shows everybody there, but they're all looking at you, the actual adventurer. POV, you just got isekai'd. But now that we have our group assembled, we can actually begin a dangerous journey. As we approach the first setting, the Forest of Lost Flowers, Griffin Rider tells us, once you get lost in the Forest of Lost Flowers, it is impossible to escape, so use the Starlit Papillons to find the way out. There are dangerous battles all the way, but we shall be the cat's meow with the healing magic of a goddess. So that is a little setting here. Starlit Papillon is another one of the equip spells, being called a mysterious butterfly that shows the right way to go. And while Starlit Papillon has some pretty helpful effects, I think it is really cool that the deck is built in a way where the field spell and the equip spell sort of go together. Obviously thematically, but also in terms of their effects. Also, the magic of the goddess that the Griffin Rider was talking about can be seen in the artwork of the trap card Breath of Resurrection. And I also sort of didn't really mention the other trap spell Thunder Discharge. But as you can see, these seem to represent other little deities that you have access to during battle. In Thunder Discharge, we can see the Thunder God attacking the enemies while the party is like lined up at the bottom. And meanwhile, in Breath of Resurrection, direction. I guess the Griffin Rider got really hurt and needed some healing magic. But I think these two cards are some really fun ways to continue building out the world. And while the deck is built to have a lot of face-up spell cards, there isn't really that much room for the trap cards. So I understand why there are only 2, but I think there is a lot of potential to expand these even further. Now we move on to the next setting, Zaralan the Dark Palace. Magicore Warrior tells us, Zaralan is a demonic cavern where monsters of the dark dwell. I shall take the lead. Will the power of the Light of Duel pave the way to the newest area? The Lord of these ruins should be awaiting you beyond that point. Prepare to summon the Lord of Thunder. So Zaralan the Dark Palace is meant to be the place where the final boss or the big bad is supposedly living, though we don't really see it represented in any actual cards, but it is scary and foreboding in its own way. Duel, the Noble Arms of Light, is the next equipped spell that we see here, meant to be one of those special legendary swords that the hero is going to use to save a day. And then also, as you heard, Magicore Warrior mentioned the Lord of Thunder, and I'm assuming that's the one that we see in the first trap card. And while it seems like this is going to be the end of the adventure, very likely this is around where we would meet another monster. Added as additional support later, we have Illegal Knight, described as a magical swordsman encountered in ancient ruins. At that time, they fought with us, but their race, gender, etc. are all unknown. So Illegal Knight is a really interesting monster, basically a villain that used to travel with the adventuring party but then change sides, which I think is really cool in how it's represented in its actual effect, because you can change control of it to your opponent by returning 2 of their cards to the hand, which is actually some pretty helpful removal, but just the way that thematically it changes sides against the adventurers. Illegal Knight is sort of implied to be another player character or the first hero that was summoned and then changed sides, as we see on the spell card Curse of Aramesir. This is another token summoning spell that also does replace the hero when they're destroyed, showing Illegal Knight as someone who jumps into this adventure and treats it purely like a video game, constantly resetting to get the best loot, as we can see with the giant sword it has. And while I think this is really cool in how it's all represented in the card effects, I think that maybe we could have gotten another card that gives us the ending to the whole adventure here where they get to save a day and everyone's all happy, or maybe even one showcasing the actual final battle that happens. But for now, that is basically where the story sort of ends, kind of on a cliffhanger, I guess, as we don't have any more lore from the valuable book, and the final monster that we could even talk about is the Celestial Apparatus Tesea, which is definitely its own thing, and while it kind of fits into the deck, the artwork doesn't really tell us a whole lot of how it plays into the story. Really, you as the player and the adventurer yourself are the only one who can decide how it ends. Will you win the battle this time, or was it all really about the friends you made along the way? So that is about all we had today for the Adventurer deck in Yu-Gi-Oh! Like I said, one of my favorites in the game, because it has this really fun fantasy theming and a very unique way of playing. As I mentioned, they did see some brief competitive play because the cards allow you to easily summon a negate, but I have so much more fun playing a pure build because you get to use a lot of the wacky effects. And I'm just so glad that Yu-Gi-Oh! Is one of those games that gives you constant reprints, because eventually this deck became a lot easier to build. It's one that I love using in real life against friends when we just play some casual Yu-Gi-Oh! I hope that in the future we get some more cards that continue fleshing out the story, as well as giving us some fun effects to play with, but for the moment I'm really going to take it to heart that I am the adventurer of this story and I get to decide how it ends. So let me know what you think in the comments below about Adventurer. Have you pulled any of these cards? Did you use the engine competitively? Or have you tried out the pure build? If you enjoyed watching, remember to leave a like, subscribe, and hype up the video as well. But anyway, this is GatorX, thank you all for watching, and I will catch you all later.